The Young and the Restless spoilers. Mariah Copeland had always carried a quiet strength beneath her often sarcastic exterior. She had fought her way through abandonment, betrayal, kidnapping, heartbreak, and the stifling weight of identity crises, but nothing had prepared her for the slow unraveling of the life she thought she had finally secured. Genoa City had become a place of both salvation and exile for her, a town where she had built love and found purpose, but also one that never stopped testing the limits of her endurance. And now, once again, her world was beginning to collapse from within, like a house left to rot under the appearance of charm. The first signs were subtle. Whispers in the dark. Shifts in energy that Mariah couldn't quite explain. Tessa Porter, her wife, her partner, her once constant, had grown distant, then warm, then strange again, like a radio signal caught between frequencies. Mariah dismissed it at first as stress, creative pressure, perhaps even her own paranoia. But when she stumbled across a text message on Tessa's phone, something she hadn't meant to read but couldn't unsee, her suspicions crystallized into something far more dangerous. The message wasn't just friendly. It was intimate. Emotional. It was from Daniel Romalotti. At first, Mariah told herself it couldn't be what it looked like. Daniel was a friend to both of them, a man with his own ghosts, his own complications. But as days passed and the tension between Tessa and Mariah sharpened like glass underfoot, it became undeniable. The casual touches, the private conversations, the glances exchanged when they thought no one was looking, Mariah saw it all now, not through the eyes of an accuser, but a woman slowly being erased from the life she helped build. She tried to confront it, gently at first. Tessa, ever the artist, deflected with poetic sorrow. Nothing happened. You're imagining things. It's just friendship. But Mariah knew the difference between a connection born from shared music and one born from forbidden emotion. She could feel it in the way Tessa no longer held her gaze. In the way her voice wavered when she said "I love you." The words had become empty ritual without devotion. And so, one night, Tessa didn't come home. She texted that she was staying late at the studio. Mariah didn't respond. She just stared at the wall of their apartment in silence, feeling the chill of a future being rewritten without her consent. Tessa could leave. She had every right. But what tore Mariah apart was the realization that Tessa already had, emotionally, spiritually, days or maybe weeks ago. Left in the emptiness of their shared space, Mariah unraveled. She stopped returning messages. She ignored calls from Sharon, from Faith, from even Kyle, who had always tried to remain neutral. She began sleeping too much or not at all. Her appetite vanished. The colors of the world dulled, her thoughts became slow, heavy, and loud all at once. Depression, something she had danced with in the past, now overtook her like a storm cloud that refused to pass. She wasn't just heartbroken. She was lost. And no one seemed to notice how close to the edge she had begun to drift. But then came the message. It arrived anonymously. No contact name. No warning. Just a single photo sent in the middle of the night. The kind of photo that could stop a heart. It was her. Standing in an alley. A bloodied figure slumped at her feet. A man, unknown, unfamiliar, his face twisted in death, a shadow of horror lingering in the frame. Mariah stood above him, frozen in motion, caught by the lens in a posture that could not be explained away. Her hands stained red. Her eyes wide with terror. It was real. She remembered it now, faintly, more like a nightmare than a memory. A night she had buried deep, convinced it had never truly happened. But the photo said otherwise. The message that followed was simple. I know what you did. Follow instructions or the world sees this. Mariah's breath caught in her throat. Her legs gave out. The phone dropped from her hands and landed with a soft thud that echoed like thunder in the silent apartment. Who would send this? Who had been watching her? And more importantly, was this real? She tried to make sense of the image. The man. The alley. It was blurred by time and trauma, but the memory refused to stay buried. That night, years ago, before she'd found stability, during a time when she'd been running from herself, she remembered wandering into a bar where a stranger wouldn't take no for an answer. She remembered defending herself. She remembered something breaking. Then nothing. Just a blank space. She had always told herself she blacked out and somehow ended up home. But someone else had been there. Someone had seen everything. And they had waited all this time to reveal it. Panic set in. Not just from the fear of being exposed, but from the realization that someone had been watching her for years, possibly orchestrating this moment for maximum impact. Mariah knew how Genoa City worked. Scandal traveled faster than truth. All it would take was one leak, one whisper, and her life would be over. Tessa would flee. The Newmans would turn their backs. Sharon, even with her therapist's patience, might not be able to absorb the truth. And worse yet, she didn't know if she deserved to be saved. But who? Who would do this? There was one name that surfaced again and again. Cain Ashby. Once a man of charm and redemption, now a mystery wrapped in ambition and quiet menace. Mariah had heard whispers about his new ventures, about his growing influence, about how he had eyes everywhere and a memory long enough to rival Victor Newman. But more than that, Cain had once crossed paths with her in a way that had left unsettled tension. Nothing overt. Nothing violent. But enough friction to be remembered. Was it him? Was he the one behind the message? Had he obtained the photo and planned this as a move in some larger game? Was she just another piece on his chessboard? Mariah couldn't be sure. But the message didn't end there. Hours later, another instruction arrived. Come to the rooftop of the old Hamilton Club at midnight. Alone. Or everyone sees this. Her hands trembled as she held the phone, reading the words again and again. She knew it could be a trap. But if she didn't go, she would lose everything anyway. So she went. The rooftop was silent. Wind howled across the open space. The skyline of Genoa City glimmered in the distance, but it felt cold, far away, like a city she no longer belonged to. She waited. Heart pounding. Every shadow a potential attacker. Every second a threat. Then, footsteps. A silhouette emerged from the darkness. Tall. Male. Face hidden in the hood of a coat. Mariah, the voice said. Familiar. Too familiar. But it wasn't Cain. It was Daniel. Her heart twisted. What the hell is this? She demanded. He removed the hood slowly. The guilt in his eyes spoke volumes. I didn't want it to come to this, he said. You sent those, she whispered. He hesitated. I had to. Why? Because you were going to destroy everything. And that's when it hit her. It wasn't just about Tessa. It was about something much deeper. Something orchestrated. Something personal. Mariah Copeland thought the worst had passed the moment she saw Daniel's face under the rooftop lights, but the nightmare was only beginning. He wasn't the mastermind, just a cog, albeit a guilty one, in a much larger machine. His explanation came tumbling out in fragments, none of which gave her solace. He claimed someone had approached him months ago, threatening to reveal his own past discretions unless he participated in what he called a redirection of leverage. The threat involved both Mariah and Tessa, and though Daniel initially resisted, the mention of Lucy's name, his daughter, had been enough to bend him. He insisted he never meant to hurt Mariah, only to stall whoever was behind the curtain, but that claim rang hollow in the face of what had been done. Mariah left the rooftop without another word. Her world wasn't just crumbling, it was being pulled apart thread by thread. The photo. The messages. The manipulation. It all pointed to one thing: someone powerful, someone calculating, had their sights set on her. The prime suspect lingered like a shadow in the back of her mind, Kane Ashby. Kane had recently returned to Genoa City with new ambition and a different air. He wasn't the man he used to be, brash, impulsive, torn between redemption and ruin. This version of Kane moved quietly, played long games, and, according to whispers in corners of society, had begun making subtle moves to influence Sharon Newman's company from the outside. It started with partnerships, then leaked memos, and now, the most dangerous weapon of all, leverage. If Kane had obtained the photo of Mariah and was orchestrating this entire threat campaign, it was more than just blackmail, it was corporate warfare. Mariah worked with Sharon. Sharon was family. If Sharon could be compromised through Mariah's exposure, then Sharon's company would become vulnerable. Mariah didn't want to believe it, but the theory aligned too neatly with the facts. And if Kane was willing to destroy her life to secure power, what wouldn't he do? The most disturbing possibility, however, wasn't about Kane. It was about the man in the photo, the bloodied stranger she believed was dead. She remembered his face more clearly now. A bar. A confrontation. His hands around her neck. Her instinct to survive had kicked in before logic did. She had struck him, hard, with something heavy. Then, darkness. She had convinced herself he died. The blood had said as much. But what if he hadn't? What if he had survived, fled, and disappeared only to return now, years later, to exact revenge? What if he was the one sending the messages, setting the stage, and using others like Daniel as pawns? Or worse, what if he had died, and someone close to him knew the truth and had decided to avenge him? A brother. A wife. A son. Her mind spun with possibilities. That's when the second message came. A different number. A different tone. This one said, "You thought it was over. It isn't. I'm not the only one who knows." Attached to it was another photo, this time, a surveillance still of her entering Sharon's office late at night, looking around nervously. Whoever this was, they weren't just digging into her past, they were watching her in real time. She turned off her phone and paced, trembling with adrenaline and confusion. Was Kane watching her? Or someone else? Was this just a psychological game, or was someone truly closing in on her with the intent to ruin her? Or worse. Mariah made the decision not to tell Sharon. Not yet. Sharon was under enough pressure trying to protect her company from external threats, particularly Kane's growing interest in acquisitions. If she knew Mariah was compromised, she might make a rash decision to protect her, even if it meant sacrificing the firm she had fought so hard to build. And that was something Mariah couldn't allow, not after everything Sharon had done for her. But silence had a cost. The messages continued, each one darker than the last. Some demanded money, others demanded influence. One simply read, "Introduce me to Sharon's legal team. Say it's about investment. That's all you have to do, for now." Mariah didn't respond, but she understood now. This wasn't about revenge. It was about infiltration. Whoever was behind the blackmail didn't want her dead or exposed. Not yet. They wanted access. Legitimacy. And they were going to use her to get it. She began digging into Kane's recent ventures, hunting for shell companies, investments made through proxies. She found one, Ashwell Industries, recently registered offshore, and quietly acquiring contracts with regional logistics firms, all of which serviced Sharon's supply chain. She confronted Daniel again, desperate for a name, a hint, a trail, but he refused to speak further. He was being watched, too. She was sure of it. And yet, in his eyes, she also saw fear. Not fear of consequences, but fear of someone even he didn't fully understand. Then, a final twist, Raina. A woman Mariah barely remembered but who appeared in her inbox one day with a message that said only, "He was my brother." No last name. No further explanation. Just a single attached file, a digitized version of a police report from years ago, detailing the discovery of a man's body in a drainage ditch outside Genoa City. Same night. Same description. Case ruled inconclusive due to insufficient evidence. She read it again and again, trying to grasp what it meant. The man had died. She hadn't imagined it. She had killed him. But someone had buried the evidence. Someone had hidden the body. And now, his sister had emerged from the ashes of silence to make sure justice was delivered. But what kind of justice was Reina seeking? She didn't demand the police. She didn't demand a confession. She demanded obedience. The next message was simple: you owe a debt. Your silence has cost a life. Now it's time to repay. Mariah's breath caught. The weight of that sentence settled in her bones like ice. She had told herself for so long that the past was buried, that she had been a victim defending herself. But now, she was being recast, not as a survivor, but as a villain. She didn't know how long she could survive under that weight. Her depression worsened. Sleep became a stranger. Food made her nauseous. And her reflection began to feel like someone else's. Alone in the apartment she once shared with Tessa, Mariah began writing notes to herself on sticky pads, affirmations, reminders, scraps of hope. But the truth was, she was slipping. And she knew it. Her only lifeline was the knowledge that someone else was orchestrating this. Someone with a plan. If she could find them, name them, unmask them, perhaps she could take back control of her life. She reached out to Chance Chancellor, anonymously at first, then later in person. She gave him bits of information, posing it as a friend's concern. He was intrigued but cautious. She had to be careful. If Reina or whoever else was watching her suspected she was talking to the police, it could all implode. But Chance agreed to help. Quietly. He began looking into Ashwell Industries. He traced it back, not to Kane, but to someone using an alias connected to multiple shell corporations in Eastern Europe. Someone with ties to both the legal and black market information trade. Someone who was already under quiet federal surveillance. The pieces didn't all add up yet, but one thing was clear: this was bigger than Kane. It may have started with Kane's ambitions, but someone else had picked up the thread and weaponized it. Someone who wanted more than power. They wanted ruin. And Mariah was the key. Days later, she received the final message, at least for now. No demands. No instructions. Just 5 chilling words: you're not ready for truth. That night, her apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen. But her sticky notes, her affirmations, were all gone. In their place was a single photograph, taped to the bathroom mirror. It was of her, sleeping. Taken from the foot of her bed. Mariah screamed. But no one heard her.